Dear students, today I'll discuss with you about the UNO. UNO, Organization of the World. UNO is very much in the news nowadays. Also very much concerned about UNO nowadays. UNO, which was formed on 24 October 1945 after the Second World War, and its idea was given by Franklin D. Roosevelt, the President of America. UNO consists of 193 members. Many people, many scholars called it the Panchayat of the world. The last country which joined UNO as a member was South Sudan. Now, UNO works under the 6 organs. It had 6 major organs through which it functions. First of all is General Assembly. Second is United Nations Security Council. Third is Social and Economic Council. Fourth is Trusteeship Council. Fifth is International Court of Justice. And sixth is Secretariat. Today I will be discussing with you the second organ of the UNO, that is United Nations Security Council. United Nations Security Council is very much in the news and concerning India also, because 2021 India is going to be its member. India remained its member earlier also, and in this century it will be the third tenure of India. Firstly in 91-92, then it was in 2011-12, and now it is 21-22 India will be the member. Briefly, I'll tell you about the United Nations Security Council. United Nations Security Council consists of 15 members. 5 are permanent. They are USA, UK, France, Russia, and China. They are termed as P5 and have a veto power. There are 10 other members who are called the temporary members. They are elected for the period of 2 years temporarily. And this 2-year tenure, India will consist from 2021. India is very important country, not of Asia, rather of the world. It is playing a dominant role. And India is also a very strong contender for the United Nations Security Council permanent seat also, along with Germany, Japan, Brazil, South Africa. India is a very hot contender for that. Certainly, India will be a permanent member of United Nations Security Council in the coming years. And now, India will be the member for the 2 years term. But there will be various challenges before India. I come out with a few of the challenges which are before India, and India have to face those challenges, and certainly India will come across all these challenges. The United Nations Security Council, this temporary seat for 2 years, India will hold for the 3rd time since the end of the Cold War. India finds a very different dynamic than the one it encountered during the earlier years in 91, 92, and 2011 and 12. India also has changed over the few decades. The range of Indian interests has expanded, and so has the circle of India's international partners. India's attitude have also shifted from the reactive to the proactive. In turn, India should make a new stint at the United Nations Security Council more purposeful and pragmatic. Purposeful is about tightly interacting its United Nations Security Council engagement with India's broader national goals. Pragmatism demands adapting to the changed conditions at the United Nations Security Council and avoiding overly ambitious aims. During 91-92, India saw the collapse of the Soviet Union, and there was the end of the Cold War. And the new Russia's turned to the US and the West. The People's Republic of China was focused on getting its house in order, opening its economy, and keeping a low profile in the unipolar world. India also had reasons to keep its head down. Delhi and India to fix its broken economy, put out political brushes across the country and its foreign policy to cope up with the Soviet world. At this time in the early 90s and the mid 90s, India adopted the lookist policy. The idea of lookist policy was given by the former Prime Minister of India, Mr. I.K. Gujral. The West would not resist the temptations for geopolitical overreach at the United Nations. Liberals across the Atlantic sought to transform the international forum into a supranational institution that would actively reshape the domestic structures of different societies. For India, it was a moment to hunker down and resist external imposition of solutions to its manifold problems, especially on the Kashmir question and on the nuclear issue. A revived Russia during the 2011-12 and a rising China began a challenge for the sweeping Western agenda at the United Nations. India's own relative position improved in the first decade of the 21st century. Thanks to a rapid economic growth, Delhi was certainly less defensive than in the 1990s, but struggled to turn its new strength into practical outcomes. A decade later, India has walked into a far more contentious United Nations Security Council. Differences between the USA, China, and Russia have become intraceable. China has risen to be a great power and is making expensive claims and trying to redeem them. USA and Russia have drifted apart, and Russia has moved closer to China. This tension among the US, China, and Russia has been reinforced by sharpening disagreement between USA and its European allies. Donald Trump's questioning of America's traditional alliances, although President-elected Joe Biden wants to work closely with European allies in the global arena, not all wrinkles can be smoothed over. As India looks for a productive tenure at the United Nations Security Council, there are 5 challenges before India for this United Nations Security Council temporary seat. The United Nations Security Council is becoming less effective today thanks to the deep divisioning among the major powers. The United Nations Security Council was designated to function as a concert of five powers, unanimously among the five permanent members with veto powers was the Cold War. After a brief moment of great power cooperation in the 1990s, we are now back in an era of contestations. But there will be enough room for India to carve out a larger role for itself amid renewal great power rivalry. The United Nations Security Council offers room for sustained diplomatic interactions between the major powers who could minimize tensions and create new opportunities for cooperation. Much like the United Nations and USSR that cooperated on issues relating to the nuclear proliferation at the height of the Cold War. The US and China could explore potential common ground even amidst their broad-based confrontation. All other powers, including India, will of course want to be sure that the US-China cooperation is not at the expense of the others. The second point, making the United Nations Security Council more representative has been one of India's demands since the end of the Cold War. Pessimists would urge India to curb its enthusiasm. China has been in no interest in letting two other Asian powers, India and China, join the United Nations Security Council as a permanent members. Optimists would suggest India's campaign in partnership with Brazil, Germany, and Japan to expand the United Nations Security Council must continue. For the campaign is about an important principle and revealing the nature of political resistance also. Third point, Delhi has no choice but to deal with China, growing hostility to India at the end of the Cold War. India had bet that cooperation with China on the multilateral front was valuable in its own right and would also help generate the conditions for resolving the boundary dispute and expand the areas of bilateral cooperation. Delhi, which was eager to build a multipolar world with China, now find itself in unipolar Asia that is centered on China. In the meantime, the boundary disputes has worsened over the last decade. India now joined the United Nations Security Council amid a containing military standoff between in the Himalayas following the Chinese aggression in the Ladakh region in the mid of 2020. Senior Indian officials have promised to work with China with an open mind. China has repeatedly tried to get the United Nations Security Council focus on India's constitutional changes in Kashmir. China protects Pakistan from the international pressure that India has put to mobilize at various arenas. On the nuclear front, China continues to block India's membership of the Nuclear Supply Group, NSG. And the fourth point, the engagement with peace and security issues at the United Nations Security Council will allow India to strengthen its new coalitions such as the Quad, which brings together Australia, India, Japan, and the USA. India could also use the United Nations Security Council tenure to deepen collaboration with its European partners like France and Germany in the security arena and find common ground with global Britain that is carving out of a new international path for itself after breaking away from the European Union, that is Brexit. India must also sustain an intensive dialogue with Russia on all international issues, notwithstanding Russia's worsening problems with the West and closer ties to China, because we cannot forget that Russia is a tried and tested friend of India. Fifthly, India needs to revitalize its engagement with its traditional partners in the global south by articulating their peace and security concerns in the United Nations Security Council. Two subgroups of the global south should be of special interest. The various small island states around the world face existential challenges from global warming and rising sea levels. They also struggle to exercise control over their large maritime states. Supporting the sovereignty and survivability of the island states is a crucial political task for India. Africa is other priority. Nearly half of United Nations Security Council meetings, 60% of its documents, and 70% of its resolutions are about peace and security in Africa. Large part of this continent, which we earlier called a dark continent, is facing instability. The continent has 3 seats in the United Nations Security Council: Kenya, Niger, and Tunisia. And there is regular consultation between the United Nations Security Council and the Peace and the Security Council of the African Union. The United Nations Security Council tenure is a good moment for Delhi to intensify India's engagement on peace and security issues in Africa's bilateral, regional, and global levels. These are the few challenges ahead India for after becoming the member of the United Nations Security Council. I'm quite hopeful India will come across all these challenges, and India will be certainly, within a few years, will be the permanent member in the Security Council of the UN. Thank you very much.